Welcome back to my Commodore 64 Memories videos. This is where I look at old Commodore 64 software and some of the technical details behind them. Today we have Star Wars, published in 1988 by Domark, 10-Gen, Atari Games, Lucasfilm. The coder was Daniel James Gallagher, Ian Martin, Joe Booth, graphics by John Cassez, I hope I've got your name right, John, and the musician was David Whittaker. Of course, may the 4th be with you. This disc version seems to fill the memory with a repeating pattern before it loads, and we have these little random green dots as well, indicating spurious memory reads in the memory view there. I think that's part of the kind of like the protection, perhaps, makes it harder to compress. And there's the sample there. You can see the green reads going through memory sequentially. But the spurious reads, I see that quite often in this style of disk turbo loader. So we have some sprites already in two different banks there using the graphics map view. Looks like these sprites are identical, which is not really going to be a surprise because I think this has a double buffered rendered view because it's using bitmap rendering, if I remember correctly. So we have here, even on the title screen, we have a blank bitmap there, but with pull trigger to start up at the top. And then we've got, it's not rendering into the left-hand bitmap, it's rendering into the bitmap in the second bank there. We have the instructions coming up on the screen. We've probably got an Eeyore star field going along in the background as well, because look, if I draw stuff into the bitmap, the pixels weren't getting erased. Here, the pixels are getting erased, and it's rendering into both of those bitmaps in the first and second bank there. We have a big block of empty memory there in the first Vic bank. I wonder what that is because it's not being overwritten. Look, but if I render pixels using the graphics map debug view there, if I enter pixels into the bitmap manually, then they're not always getting cleared out. It depends on where they are on the screen. So the graphics map there for the sprites shows us what kind of sprites we're going to expect to see in the view. And there we go, straight away. We can see from the bitmap view there, look, if I draw pixels into the bitmap view, we can see that the entire screen practically is being cleared. And when the shields get depleted, I think the shields display gets updated as well into memory with just a straight copy by the looks of that. But yeah, the majority of the pixels are being retained. Apart from, well, in the score panel they're being retained, but in the main game view it looks like the whole main game view has just cleared the entire main game bitmap view. So that's why the frame rate is, let's be honest, not that great. So in other games like Elite, the bitmap draw was actually using an Eeyore to erase and then render a new frame and then Eeyore off the old frame and only clearing the pixels that it needed to clear. This just brute force clears the entire bitmap. We can see actually that, okay, so the guns on the left and the right and the middle bottom portion of the view, the targeting cursor, reticle, whatever it is, that's also a sprite. We can see that because it's not appearing in the bitmap debug graphics map views there on the right hand side, but it is appearing on the C64's emulated video output. So yeah, those parts there are using sprites, but the majority of the stuff, look, the Death Star is also a sprite. It's not appearing in the debug bitmap views, but it's appearing in the game view on the emulated 64. So yeah, the Death Star, at least when it's small and off into the distance, the Death Star is not rotating around or anything, it's just a sprite, along with the guns left and right in the bottom middle portion and the targeting cursor, reticle, whatever it is. We can see there, look, in the memory view, it's just doing great big massive clears of the bitmap memory. So 2 bitmaps in the first and second Vic bank. at 200 in hex and at 6000 in hex. So once we get through to the next part of the game, well, first of all, we have this, there we go, look, the sprite changes to bitmap rendered updates for the zooming in portion to the Death Star. In this trench portion of the game, as you would kind of expect, right, the trench, the fireballs, the gun emplacements, they are all rendered into the bitmap, but of course, the ships, the players' ship guns and everything in the left and the right and the middle, bottom middle portion of the screen, they are all staying as sprites, as you would kind of normally expect, right? So I loved this game actually in the arcade, and I was really quite happy of the version that we've got on the Commodore 64, given the speed limitations of the processor, and of course it's not a vector display, it's a bitmap display. Then I think it did pretty well, but you know, still the frame rate is still kind of like clunky, but it's not too bad really. I think the Commodore 128, if you played it on a Commodore 128, you could benefit from the 2 MHz mode in the borders. Look, the Death Star explosion only uses one bitmap screen, so it uses a single buffer for the bitmap there. It doesn't use a double buffered rendering at all. And the star field, look, when the text with the star field is on the screen, it's only using one bitmap as well. So let's see if we can have a little dive into the code, see if we can figure out what the code does. We just need to set a ranged watch store point on the memory range from 2000 to 4000, so for the first bitmap in the first bit bank there. And then we very quickly hit that range watch store point for the memory store in the debugger, of course, as expected, because it's part of the main game view render. Let's tidy up all of these windows, get them out of the way a little bit. And then we have this code here. So let's hop backwards through the code and then see if we can locate the main loop, usually with a whole bunch of JSRs. So we'll hop out until we get to somewhere sensible. We've got some JSRs here. That looks interesting. We have a very tight loop there reading DC08, which is actually reading the timer register. So it's measuring a specific length of ticks in the timer. Looks like it's limiting the frame rate to within a certain number of ticks. But I think these JSRs here, I think they're the ones that actually do the render loop. So we've got the blank bitmap there in the bottom right hand corner of the graphics debug map view. It's already cleared the bitmap. Since it's cleared the bitmap, I'm pretty sure that if we keep on stepping, we're going to locate the specific portions of this rendering loop here, which actually draw stuff to the screen. So we've got a whole bunch of JSRs. So 837C, there we go. It's rendered stars into the bitmap view there. If we keep on moving over, stepping over these JSRs using the step over command in the machine code monitor. The main game view is just rendering stars at the moment. There's no ships on there. So let's advance through a few frames until we get stuff like spaceships and fireballs on the screen. That's probably a good idea. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to... there we go. So the debug, the debug bitmap view now shows a fireball at least and a couple of TIE fighters and also the star field. So let's step through that again now. So there's no guarantee that we're going to be rendering into that cleared. There we go. The bitmap just got cleared. Good. Right. So yes, that JSR there renders the stars, and then that JSR at 8382 just rendered the TIE fighters. That's fantastic. And then if we keep on watching here, and then if we keep on stepping through these routines or stepping over these JSRs and these other instructions too, we'll just do a few more steps. There we go. There's a JSR there. Step over this JSR. There we go. There we go. And the routine at 8415, the JSR there, 24E1E, has rendered the fireballs. So let's Display both bitmaps again side by side. The first FIC bank and the second FIC bank. We'll just rearrange these windows so that we have a double-sized view, but we'll put them side by side. We don't need to. Oh, look at that! Those pixels. Whoops! I clicked on the wrong area of the screen. Let's get it back again. There we go. So those pixels that I painted into that blank area there haven't actually been updated. Look, so there's a whole bunch of blank memory that could have been used for optimizations, but sadly wasn't. So let's keep on stepping over. Okay, good. Let's fill both bitmaps. The bitmap in bank 1 and also, the bitmap in bank 2. There we go. Let's fill that one as well, all with 0. So we are manually clearing both bitmaps. So now we'll see if those JSRs are common routines which draw into both bitmaps. So let's clear that second VIC bank bitmap there. So we're not entirely sure which one is going to be rendered as a view now on the Commodore 64, but we don't really care. We're just seeing if those flagged breakpointed JSRs are common routines which render to both bitmaps, and it looks like they do, right? So if I step over that, okay, so it rendered fireballs again. Okay, good. And then if we, look, see, render starfield, render player ships in the second bitmap, and render fireballs. So there we go. That was a very, very quick deep dive into Commodore 64 Star Wars. We managed to find out that the game is using a combination of a double buffered bitmap plus sprite overlays for the guns and also for other incidental graphics like the Death Star. And also we managed to find the high-level routines anyway for rendering the starfields, rendering the TIE fighters and other 3D objects, and then the fireballs. So yes, if you like these kind of technical deep dive videos, then please do consider liking or subscribing to this channel, or sending me a super thanks. They are always very much appreciated. Take care, have a great day, evening or night, wherever you are.